So I want to talk about today a couple of things. We're working with this great old poem. The darkness is inside the bright, but don't look only with the eyes of the dark. The brightness is inside the dark, but don't look only through the eyes of the bright. Bright and dark are a pair like front foot and back foot walking. Okay then. And I want to read, this is Su Tung Po, who's one of the very late, great of the Chinese poets of the great period. And well, here I'll read this. I wasn't intending to read this, but I'd asked to be read. This is in 1080. On first arriving at Guangzhou, funny, I never could keep my mouth shut. It gets worse the older I get. The long river loops the town. He's in exile for not keeping his mouth shut. The long river loops the town. Fish must be tasty. Good bamboo lines the hills. And smell the fragrant shoots. On exile, why mind being a minor bureaucrat? Other poets have worked for the Water Bureau. Too bad I was no help to the government, and they still pay me in old wine sacks. That's Su Tung Po. And he had a great spring night. 1 hour is worth 1,000 gold coins. The clear scent of flowers, the shadowy moon, songs and flutes upstairs, threads of sound. In the garden a swing, where night is deep and still. Written on the wall at West Forest Temple, 1084. Not that long ago. From the side, it's a whole range, from the end a single peak. Far, near, high, low, no two parts alike. Why can't I tell the true shape of Lu Mountain? Because I myself am in the mountain. Su Tung Po. The front foot and the back foot walking. In the court, and then he got fired and exiled, and then he got exiled far away to the south coast, where people were expected to die of malaria if you were exiled, because you weren't used to it. But then he got half unexiled, and he came back to the river town where the bamboo looks good on the hills, and like that. So front foot and back foot walking. So we're in this vast vessel, really. We're being carried, and we start to be aware that there's something different about mind when we've been doing this for almost a week. And you notice, you start noticing things that you don't normally notice, like, I don't know what you notice. What do you notice that you don't normally notice? Hey, ask the horse. What do you notice that you don't normally notice? What are you noticing?
The bathroom floor is sparkly.
So that's a very good example because of the dark and bright working together. Yeah, thank you. That's the only thing we noticed. 40 people a week. The bathroom floor, well, good enough. The elm tree looks like Pele. Okay, very good. What else? The curling of the eucalyptus bark. It's one of those complete things, isn't it? It's like thusness that's a tug at the quality of the eucalyptus bark. Yeah. What do you notice about you and your mind? There's not a right answer. I'm just asking what you notice. Come on, give me a break here. Yes.
I notice that it's very clear when I say or do something.
When you do something unusual, or what?
Just that it's not genuine.
What's not genuine?
What I say or do, that I notice that I never do it, only the one time, but when I say something that it's just not what I really mean.
Then what happens?
It's just jarring. It's
Yeah,
very-
good. You notice that, yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. It's a marvelous thing, isn't it? We notice that we can't, it's harder to lie to ourselves when we're doing so. And it's, I don't know, it's always easy to lie to yourself, but in a way it doesn't taste good, and we notice that it's I remember the stories that Jacques Le Servan, a blind French writer, wrote about. He learned to bicycle and he had that kind of blind sight. But as soon as he got pissed off or started arguing with someone, he'd run into a tree. It's like when we're in Zazen, there's too much us in it when we're manipulating things by saying something's not true, even if it's sort of a harmless kind of thing. So there's a tremendous thing about, and it's not a matter of right or wrong, but it's a matter of being here, and the thusness of respecting the quality of being here. We're showing up, and we can actually meet each other if we really show up, which is good. We're for that, and okay, so that's one thing. And do you notice that when you complain, you run into a tree? If you're riding a bicycle and you happen to be blind, which you probably do, So, and you notice how, like, so the front foot and the back foot, you notice how you have these moments where the universe is marvelous and you're caught up in it. And you're caught up in the vast extent of it. Could happen to you, could have happened many times this week. Could be happening as we're speaking, if you look. And then you notice there's something else, I don't know, you fall out of it or something, or in some way it's like stubbing your toe, but you start worrying about someone else's opinion and you say something that's not true. Not that it's a lie or anything like that, but it's not like coming from a deep place, or it could be, or you worry about someone else's opinion and you don't even say anything, you're not even lying or anything, but just worrying about someone's opinion doesn't seem, that takes you out of the true world. And so the front foot and back foot walking, there's something about, and then you've got to deal with, oh my God, I was meditating perfectly and then something happened and I'm not now and I did it all wrong. And somehow that's not it either, right? You can tell it's not the dualism of things isn't right, And so, somebody said to me, well, I was working on my car and it was so great and I just felt, and it was a kind of, I felt awakened and then the next day it was just really, I was really happy and miserable. I need a new car. And there's a natural movement of the mind, it's outside circumstances. Or somebody said to me, I've been meditating this koan for about 6 months' time, and I'm leaving it to you, but don't you think it's time for me to have a new koan? No. That's where I used to, like in the old days, I had a bell, and I'd just ring the bell and the person left. But there's nothing, it's a sort of harmless thing we do, but we're always reaching out there for things, And then you notice that, so I wanted to talk about, the word kensho encompasses the front foot and the back foot and the bright and the dark. And it just means seeing your true nature. It's not a big deal, it's a word, But you know, it's a good thing. And it's, I wouldn't say that it's a real thing. It's not, I don't know, it's not a real thing. and so, and there are, you know, many accounts of people having an awakening experience, but you've noticed you can't ever, they don't ever describe it very well, because when you've shifted, your way of being is shifted, you can't really hang it on the wall and say it's that. You know? And so, and all the old stories that what, you know, like one person who was a completely stubborn, difficult person, and then suddenly he wakes up, his teacher hands a candle to go to bed in the dark, and teacher then blows it out, and suddenly he wakes up, you know, the candle gets blown out, and he says it's dark outside, and the teacher hands him the candle, and it blows it out, and suddenly it's dark inside too now. And suddenly he is a very opinionated, intellectual person, suddenly has this awakening, and he bows, and the teacher says, well, why do you bow? What do you see? And he says, from now on I will not doubt the words of an old master, renowned everywhere under the sun. Doesn't really tell you a lot about what he experienced, does it? But you can feel something has really happened, you know, and so it's like that. It's one of those things, and some of them are sort of like that. They're very sudden. Other people, they just like it opens and opens and opens, you know. So yeah, and sometimes people have even like, the teacher said, go away and teach, it's good enough, you know. And I thought, I don't know. One guy was worried about it. There was a symbolic thing of giving, it was a Dongshan who's in the Shido lineage, was, do I have my teacher's portrait or not? It was a symbol of transmission. And he said, he just wasn't at ease in his mind about it. His teacher said, I don't know, piss off, something else is going to have to help you there. You know? And sometimes that's true, that you get you get handed to something else. Happened with Lin Ji, and you know, his teacher kept refusing him entry, and he went to someone else, and then suddenly everything opened. But his teacher's refusal, his teacher holding him to the difficulty, helped him come open. And the portrait thing is, the teacher wasn't unkind, but he just sent him away, and really in a way I've done what I can, you know, and go away and find out. And then he was obsessing about whether he had the portrait or not, and he looks in the stream as he's crossing, and he sees his face. And suddenly that's the next piece of the awakening. It wasn't that he didn't have an awakening beforehand, but you know, so you can get one shoe and then the other drop. Somebody told me they kind of got emptiness, but they didn't really, it felt kind of chilly, you know. Ann Aiken said, Ann Aiken was, you know, pretty serious Zen student, and she said, yeah, one shoe dropped and then the other, but she had the sense of the vastness, but it wasn't like in her life. And then a couple of weeks later, it was, you know. So, and when an awakening actually is a real thing, and it's not like I'm feeling good today, it's like the world has changed for me. And it doesn't mean that you won't be an idiot afterwards. Very likely you will, and possibly quite soon. But it's more like there's a kind of inner freedom and acceptance of life that happens. And so I'm just saying that. And so and those things, you know, when you're in Sesshin, everybody is going to have some moments of joy and becoming one with the environment. Unless you're fighting really hard not to, which you might be, but I think you'll see, you know, oh, I don't really need to leave here. I can understand what it's like, you know. Those people who spend, you know, lots of their life in retreat, in this kind of retreat, and having interviews and doing the koans, and they don't ever want to leave. Like, you can feel that, the truth of that, the expansiveness of that. And so that's a certain kind of, the old technical term for that is, that's a samadhi. It's a mind state, really. But it sort of overlaps with awakening in a way. It's kind of not unhelpful. But it comes and goes. And so then you'll find the next day you're worried about, I opened the door for someone and they didn't smile, So, and you can tell we're caught in something that's none of our business. Even if they can't stand you, who cares? You're trying to do your koan. So do your koan instead of worrying about what they think of you. And let them worry about what they think of you. That's their problem, not yours. And there's a profound thing in Zen, don't mind other people's business. And it's a human thing because, we're all so tied in with mirror neurons and all, somebody eats a banana and just our hand raises, and mirror neurons to raise our hand start working. We start thinking about yellow. But you can tell what I mean, just keep it in. And it's a big thing for teaching. We're trying, I think we have a really good teaching faculty here. And one of the things, the big things to teach people is don't be dependent on the quality of your students. Don't be dependent on your students getting it. And there are teachers who, bring students through with a tiny bit of awakening, but it's not doing anybody any favors. So if somebody's holding you, they're doing you a favor. So respect that. And I remember one of the people who was, a sensei here, got sick and doesn't teach with us anymore. But she studied with a teacher who was pretty new, and she would have these little experiences. She'd say, "Yes, that's it. That's awakening," and he'd drag her through a few koan answers and stuff. And it was very painful for her. So don't long to go through things that you're not. Long to really understand reality and have the joy of that. Meeting reality, truly meeting reality. And reality will look after you pretty good then, if you're not interfering. And I feel that's true. I feel like you'll always be safe because your true nature is here. You're in the Tao. And so you won't need to be afraid of things and grasping for things. And if you catch yourself doing that, it'll be sort of more, oh yeah, I don't need to do that, like that, And you'll catch yourself doing that, but, thinking, whatever it is. Physician friend of mine, who I like a lot, and was hanging out with doing a project, and he said, if I'd known I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of my body. And you can just tell him, his body's got a lot of miles on it from good living. And so that sort of thing comes up, but it's not really a regret, it's just an amusing observation, And we don't know if he would have lived longer if he's still alive. We don't know if he would have done better, taken better care of his body anyway. So he might have got run over by a bus if he wasn't in the bar. So you can't know those things. Don't stop smoking, you'll be an axe murderer. So we notice how the mind tries to control life by its theories, and we don't need them. And so one of the things when the awakening starts to happen, you start seeing your communion with your participation in the world. Maybe it's a scroll of bark, I've been very smitten by the way the wind and the leaves talk to each other, this retreat. It's very nice, the way the wind and the leaves talk. Yeah. And the other thing is that if you really put yourself on the path, have confidence in that. When Lenji said have confidence in the light that's always working inside you, he meant have confidence in the light that's always working inside you. And don't pretend it's not there. And if you've done some Sesshin, you'll notice that, I notice this, it's a real thing, even if I don't have much access to it, right? And don't whine about, oh, it's real, but at breakfast I didn't feel good. Well, ask me if I care. We're doing something deep in here, and it's all right. And if you didn't feel good, that might be the back foot walking. And you've got to allow it. You've got to allow that and be kind to that part of life. So, and it's not like it's heartless. It's just like, oh, it's the great matter we're interested in. And we're not heartless to each other or things like that. But there's something real going on, and we don't have to please people over it, because if you're really sitting in the down, holding the great work, well, people will notice and they'll accept you. And if they don't, well, that's what business is that of yours, you know. And so don't be minding other people's business in that way, because you don't even be minding your own business. You know, you don't have a you to mind anyway. So, you know, knock it off. And, but I think you know what I mean, though. You know, we're fuss about what I'm thinking. I'm not working on my koan the right way. Well, what are you doing that you're not working? My physician friend said, people come to me and I said, they're sick, and I said, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I do this and I get sick. And you know that thing you do when you get sick? Don't do that thing. So it's in meditation too, you know. But I really want to think about breakfast and have my mind be completely free. Or I want to yearn after lost loves and have my mind be completely free. If you pull that off, let me know. And there's nothing wrong with what comes up in your mind, and your mind doesn't have to be free of what they call the flows, you know, what the ancients called the flows, and it's not a bad way of looking at it, right? There's this currents and waves running through the mind, peaks and troughs, you know, and that's all right. But but you'll notice it quiets a lot. You notice in Sesshin that even when there's stuff flowing through your mind, in a way, it's nothing to do with you. And that's a profound, important thing, is not to do, and you'll feel that. You know, you don't have to be the servant of the material running through your mind. And then after a while, some of it just falls away, and I can't remember, I used to have this thing that happened in my childhood, but it's sort of, and I can get it back, but if you're free, you're not living by that. Even if it was terrible, and even if you're absolutely right to have the opinions you have, you're not living by it. That's not your Zen master. So nothing in your history is your Zen master. And the Tao will hold you. Bright and dark are a pair, front foot and back foot walking. So the Kensho thing, you can feel, I suppose you can feel, I've noticed a few of you, some of you have noticed this, you can feel the koan sort of gathering around you and being in you and outside you and coming, it's in the trees and things like that. And so it's, you can tell, I don't know, I wouldn't call this enlightenment, but I can feel that some great river current is carrying me. And then you can't feel it again. And then that's all right. What do you do when you can't feel it?
Feel that.
Okay, good. Who said that? Who said feel that? Was that you? It was the badger. Yeah, you can feel that. And also, there's something called a koan you could be doing. You know, I mean, just to inform you, it's like, you know, you're doing, let's say a koan is, what is the light? Or who am I? Or what is the light? And you think, oh God, I'm really messed up. And I don't think there's who is the light. Who am I? What is the light? You know? And whatever comes up and you think, let the koan in, but that feels artificial. What is the light? So, and after a while you'll find ways to do it sweetly and softly without just hammering at life. And you won't be stuck in trying to stop things arising. Like it's a well-known thing that you can kind of sort of stop stuff arising, but it's like you've gone into winter but you can't have spring doing that. You know, and spring is worthwhile. So that's what, the old, though you find clear waters ranging to the vast blue skies in autumn, the complete emptiness. How can that compare with a hazy moon on a spring night? Where, you're bumping into trees probably, but, but there's a liveliness and a scent in the air and things like that. So that one of the metaphors for awakening is spring, And so don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of like how marvelous and powerful this thing that's carrying us is, because it's your nature. It's in your nature to have this. And it's a precious thing, and if we came here for anything, it's that. I mean, destroy the climate and things like that as well, but while we're doing that, we could get in line. And the other thing is, which is sort of relevant there, is that we came here also, Matsu said, make a way out of no way, and which is kind of encouraging, and when you can't go forward, make of yourself a raft to ferry others across the stream. There's something about the body set for impulse is a real thing too, and I don't think you have to sit around thinking, how can I help others so much, because in a way, just do you can't. But that will come out of you, and you realize, oh, everybody in this room is doing this for the world. And everybody in this room is doing this. You're doing this great, deep, inward thing, but the freedom of that will then affect everybody you touch and know. And who knows? I mean, it's a weird thing, but non-linear things happen. Who knows how helpful that might be? So it's not a selfish thing that you're going to feel better. And so if you don't feel better on a given day, it's not important to you. Like, you don't really mind. And I'm finding when people come in, how are you? I don't know, I haven't looked. But I feel fine actually, and people say, but when you're really sick, I feel fine, so you can get that, it's okay, the dark and the bright are okay, and we're doing something valuable here, so just respect both your own capacity to be awake and to be enlightened. And if you don't feel you're enlightened enough, well, go and get enlightened enough. That's not that hard, And don't be selfish about it. Sort of, you're not doing it for you, and that will sort of keep you. That way the self is sort of like, in Australia the telephone booths were red actually, but they're the same glass thing, and they all smelled of pee and cigarette smoke and desire murmured by young teenagers into phones and things. And here they're blue. What color were they here? Blue, wasn't it? Yeah. But and they're the same thing. But you can't live in the telephone booth, and all the things, exciting things happen in telephone booths sometimes. But you don't want to live there, and so that's the self. And so you let go of that, and then naturally you're serving others, and in a way, kind of enjoying yourself doing that. And you have to choose how you serve others. And out of your own heart it will come, and so, my thing is that I teach Zen, sort of, but there are many ways to do the Bodhisattva path, and I'm not snobbish about what they are, but do the one that draws you, if you're an artist, do your art, and it will touch people, because the more deeper you're in the path, the more the art will be visible, more that will be visible. to people, you know, right? You know. So, like if you look at that, like that calligraphy of Genpo's on the wall, that says barrier, which he thought was the most helpful thing he could offer you, right? So, like, when you say this koan is hard, think of Genpo Yamamoto, great Yamamoto. Think of him, and you see that pure mind doing that big thing on it, you know. It's all right, you know. It's going to be all right, he says. Barrier! Which is like, no! No! Behind me, you know. And so you can so then it's really interesting. You'll notice that when you meet something that you find unpleasant or difficult, or you just don't know what to do with, that's your barrier, or that's your no, that's the dark, that's the back foot. And you can turn into it. A lot of the time we'll spend trying to bear it and wait it out or something. We run screaming from the room, I don't know. But pick a fight with someone, that's a time-honored strategy. But you'll notice if you turn into the difficult material, your koan will be there, and have your koan, and really don't worry about it. And it's the koan's business to do something with your mind and yourself and you, and it's just all too much for you, but the koan can do it for you. So that's a profound thing. Let the koan carry you, and it will. You know, what is your light? It will carry you. Yeah, and so and there's a kind of nice thing like with awakening. If it's a small awakening, that's fine too. But if you have an awakening or a large awakening, even that's allowed. You know. But if you have an awakening, you notice it starts to. You can feel it through. It's like a mycelium. It just goes through your life. You know, and there'll be things you just still don't know how to deal with, and you haven't learned to let the koan into them yet. You've thought, I have to do this on my own outside of my practice. But actually it's all your practice. You know, living and dying and loving and being an idiot and all that. So wherever, just let your koan into that, and you'll find it's a transformative thing. And it's not, you're not trying to heal the problem, you're trying to, the koan will tell you this problem is itself gold. And the fire that runs through everything is in the problem. What you're calling a problem doesn't think it's a problem, it just thinks it's life, you know. So, which it really is. Front foot and back foot, the bright and the dark, and they're all interwoven and not interwoven, and it all goes on endlessly. And so you can tell we're part of an endless process here, and we're always involved in it. And, you know, it's like that. You know, remember the water cycle that was amazing to me when I was a kid. Wow, it's ocean, it's raindrops, and it's clouds, and trees and rivers, and you know, that's us with that cycle. So, give me questions. I'm like Lucy. I'll charge you 5 cents, and the Zen teacher is in. If I have this hermit sign, the hermit is in, don't bother the hermit. Well, wait till, I don't know, you know. Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the song we were just...
Kanzeon, Namu Butsu, Yo Butsu Uin. Kanzeon is the one, it just means here's sounds, really. Kanzeon. Here's the sounds. And it's a marvelous thing of like, let's listen right now and hear the sounds. And then it hears the sounds of each other. You know? Like, there's something about the kindness that's in the awakened mind, in that, like, oh, we hear each other and we try to listen to each other and we care. So we don't like it's not, you don't really work at the compassion thing because you can't get away from it, you know. And it doesn't stop you from being whatever character you have, you know. If you're fierce, you'll still be fierce, but there'll be a kindness inside it, you know, a warmth inside it. So, you know, there are forms of kanzeon that have fire coming out of them. They look like Pele behind me, you know, swords and skulls around the necks and things. Well, yes, that's the deity of compassion. We can tell that, can't we? You know, if you get something really hard and difficult happens to you, it might liberate. You know? So kanzeon, namabutsu, you know. And it says thought after thought, you know, so is kanzeon, basically. Thought after thought is kanzeon. So all of it's just Dharma, you know. I mean, it's just boring old Dharma. Your thoughts are all kanzeon. The thought you didn't like, the thought you loved. It arises in the mind. It is the mind. There's no other mind than the thought arising in the mind. Like that, yeah. And it's a nice thing that the tradition of the kanzeon, the 10-verse Kanon Sutra for eternal life. So it also gives you eternal life. But you can tell there's that koan-like teaching inside it. And it's used, as we were talking, it's the one thing, if you can only chant one thing at a funeral, chant that. You know? Because it's the crossing over sutra. You cross over onto the other side, through the bardos, in enlightened realm. However you understand that, but it's like, you know, I chanted for the old sheep that died. I chanted kanzeon for her to help her across, you know. And reborn as a bigger sheep next time. And I actually kind of liked her, but she wasn't a sociable creature. And she did have very impressive horns, you know. So 4 of them. So but you know, I've done often for friends, you know, for people who've died, and you know, the heart sutra is a very good thing to chant too. But if you can only have one thing, the kanzeon's got everything in it. It's just like the koan no has everything in it. You know, maybe you could just go to the coffin and say no. These sufficient sutras and very Zen attitude, but people usually want a little more, so give them the kanzeon. And it's usually done also at joyous occasions like baby namings and weddings, but it's especially effective for crossing over. I found it like, if I'm missing a friend who died, the kanzeon will help me through, you know. And that's what ritual is for. It's not superstition, it's something to help hold the soul while we're going through transformations. And that's why we do the ritual. It's an old custom in our universe to, you know, if we can do it. I'm so glad that people enjoy, like, you know, we do that. If you do a line close together, you start hearing each other. I don't know if it's my voice or your voice, and kanzeon's voice. It's actually kanzeon's voice. You know, thought after thought is the mind, which is interesting. So the can't resist a little philosophy in the sutra as well. You think you have a mind? No, you just have all this scramble of things. You know.
Is that the same as the heart mind? Thought after thought is the heart mind?
Yeah. It's that Shin character that, I don't know if it's around here somewhere, but probably somewhere, but yeah, it's, I'm doing it to you, not to me. And it's a 4-chambered heart, actually. If you look at the old seal characters, it's a 4-chambered heart, yeah. The ancient, like 2,000-year-old characters. But then it got, you know, shortened to just like, it's got a little, you know, atrial fibrillation in the modern characters. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing. DP's got it on there. There's a seal character. Show the seal character there.
Right.
That's the ancient seal character. Yeah.
This one here looks like.
You see the heart. Yeah. Yeah.
So if we and everything we perceive is that, how is perception linked to thought?
Well, it kind of is, isn't it? It's saying it's intermingled. Thought is just one of those things that we perceive.
Percept after percept is the mind.
I think thought is more, less clinically attempting to take you away from things and just be in it, and thought after thought. It's thought moment, it's nen, the thought moment, nen, it says. And nen is the thought moment, and it's really the thing that happens too quickly for you to grasp, actually, but, like that. I think you understand that, the two people who are in, should always be in a Zen temple, or the people who could be in the Zen temple, the figures in the Zen temple. There's actually often not a Buddha, but you've always got a Kanzeon would be a nice person to have, or Manjusri, who's the emptiness dude, he's the in the palace of the empty world. But Kanzeon is like really important. And so we have a Tarrant on the altar who's a Kanzeon. I always try to make sure to have, you've got to have in a session, it's good to have the lady around, And Avalokiteshvara, of course, has masculine and feminine forms and things. People do deity yoga with that, particularly with lots of people with Avalokiteshvara, and so you visualize and then it melts into your mind and the deity yoga. Then you are Kanzeon. But you don't have to do the exercise, you just are Kanzeon. Like look at your hands. Look. Whose hands do you think they belong to? Whose hands who do they belong to? The expressions of the Tao. I'm not very good at answering questions, I feel, but I think it's probably okay. You say something, I talk for a while. It's like, we'll just trust that it's all, it's all the unfolding of interweaving is happening as we talk, And you can feel it's a real thing, you can feel it. Like, notice what it's like right now to have your heart and mind. You can feel the cool air, and inside that's Avalokiteshvara is here, Kanzeon. And so you have to be respectful to your own life, Even in your crazy times, you'll have crazy times when you're not respectful. But, don't cling to that. That does not define you. And then the awakening mind will come and appear. And that's Kanzeon rescuing you, dragging you out of hell. And then after a while you get bored with hell. Or when you go there, the legend about Kanzeon is the hell, started, flowers and green things started appearing. And the demons asked her to leave because they didn't feel they could. We love having you, but I can't really fulfill my duties. Not making souls suffer and purify, So you'll be able to walk into your own hell, but don't choose to. But when you're there, it's all right. You'll be Kanzeon and you'll see the flowers. Thank you very much.